Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are heading off to Gilly with this particular device here, and that will be absolutely fine. We are not going to have a problem getting to Gilly, but holding position over the correct location could be interesting. We'll have to choose our transfer timing correctly-ish? Correctly-ish. But for now, I was just taking a look at where this was. For now, we're going to hop back over to Kerbal. If I can actually select it. Maybe. Maybe I can select Kerbal. The answer is no. It's kind of full of other things. Cool. So for the time being, I guess we'll switch over to like Moho, or maybe can we zoom all the way out and get it? No. Well, that's exciting. I'm sure there's a way to do this. Set as target. Or actually, hang on, focus view was what we wanted. We can do that from the orbit. That's right. I'm dumb. Well, that's normal. So we're just going to hop on in here, and we're going to attempt to find ourselves a gravity assist around the moon to exit. We failed to do this previously, and I think that it might be due to Kopernicus. I'm just not used to the changes that can make to the solar system. But let's see what we've got here. Oh, well. Well, that's an impact course, but that does the trick. Must have just been a matter of timing previously, because this is absolutely fine. So that's a gravity assist out of Kerbal, and we'll line up for that. That was very easy. Cool. So let's prepare to get out of here. That burn is going to be in 1 minute even, so this is not going to be very much. We've got about 20 seconds left until this burn. 10 seconds. And 2, 1, mark. And off we go. So we're going to get our escape from the Kerbal system entirely on our booster here. So we'll be able to do our inclination change on this booster as well. That's fine. We've got more than enough delta V in this thing. So I'm not too concerned about that. In theory, we should be able to do some pretty extreme maneuvers over Gilly to get into the correct position. So that would be great. So we're going to bring this on up to 100 more meters per second. And just looking for our escape here. This looks like this is good enough. Yeah, that'll do the trick. So that's fine. We're going to pop around to prograde. And at this point, we're just going to warp over to here. Goodbye, Kerbal. We are not coming back. There you are. Goodbye, Kerbal. Hello, Moon. We're just gonna borrow some of your gravitational potential energy for a little bit here. I'm sure you'll be getting it back. That's not how gravity assists work. But the energy has to come from somewhere after all. So we're going to then warp on past Moon. Goodbye, Moon. Excellent. And we are exiting the sphere of influence of the moon. There we go. And now we're going to warp up to about... That's all a year away. That's 12 days. 11, 10, 9, 7, 1 year. Okay, we'll warp here. 7 days in the future. Goodbye, Kerbal system. Fantastic. This is going to be pretty lengthy, of course. So we just need to hold a stationary orbit directly above this zone at this altitude. Now, I wasn't aware that holding a stationary orbit over Gilly was possible, but we'll give it a go. So we're just going to, I guess, head to retrograde. There's no point in doing that, in all honesty, but we can come around over here. Ooh, the ascending node's all the way over there. Okay. So we're going to pop over to here, and we are going to burn... I always do it this way. There we go. We're going to burn this direction. Getting our inclination changed correctly to go to Eve. We'll align for that burn. That's going to be in 151 days. So that is a bit of a warp, and going interplanetary, we are going to have some of these. I'm likely going to cut out some of the warping time here. Ooh, that's very, vibration-y. Excellent. So let's just go ahead and warp here, and off we go. Now, 165 isn't that bad. If we start getting to like 200, 300 days, that's definitely getting to the point where I would strongly consider cutting it out. But for the time being, we'll just go ahead with this one. We might cut... Ooh, that was interesting. I guess I was lifting my mouse a little bit, and so it wasn't fully picking up the circles. Fantastic. That's, of course, my own fault. So, as I was saying, we'll be cutting out some of these transits in the future, for sure. But for now, this one is fine. We're already through it, and it's no big deal. So we'll align for this burn. That's in about a minute. 30 seconds. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Cool. So we could definitely get a more efficient transfer than the one that I'm going for here. This has a lot of burns in it. It's certainly not going to be optimal, but we have so much delta V that I'm not concerned about that right now. This should be good enough. Yes, it is. So if we were to look at an interception of Eve now, what might that end up looking like if we were to go, say, here, which is in like 20 days? This is going to be way off. Yeah, that's quite off. However, this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. That gets us a reasonable encounter of Eve in 130 days. I think that's solid. So we'll align for that maneuver. Excellent. We've only got 265 meters per second left in this tank, so we will, of course, be ditching this tank pretty soon. Swapping from there over to our interplanetary transfer stage is what I would normally call this, but considering we're getting most of our interplanetary transfer out of our booster stage, that's a little absurd. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty absurd. But this is a very light payload, and we're using our heavy lift rocket, so some of this is to be expected. Let's go ahead and warp on forward, and this time, I think I am going to cut out this warp, so we'll be back once this warp is over. See you guys in a bit. Okay, and here we are. With the warp having been completed, we'll warp forward slightly further because it drops us 1 minute before the burn, but we'll just get this to around 2-1 mark. And off we go. We are on our way to Eve. Fantastic. Okay, so there's our booster stage finally done. And we're out of here. That booster stage will, of course, get untracked later on. So we've got about 40 seconds of burn left here. If we were to physics warp, how volatile will this be? Not too bad. It's slightly volatile. And we should probably not be physics warping for too much longer here, because we need to finish up that burn. That's probably close enough. 0.2 meters per second off. Yeah, that's fine. So now we'll do a circularization burn here, or rather, more a capture burn. I don't really care about circularizing, but capturing is important here. We could circularize just to make things transferring over to Gilly a little bit simpler, but Gilly is in such an elliptical orbit that I don't think it really matters. Like, look at that. That is so elliptical. So what we would end up wanting to do is encapsulate the Gilly orbit, so we could essentially intercept it at any time we wanted to, and that's likely what we'll end up doing here. But we'll need to do an inclination change first. So let's get ready for that maneuver. Going to physics warp around. Cool. And that's going to be another 180 days. So, once again, we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, and here we are arriving at Eve. Oh, there's Eve. Hello. Okay, so we just popped into the sphere of influence here, and we've got about 50 seconds left until our circularization burn, I guess you could say. Yeah, this is a circularization burn at this point. So let's go ahead and burn that in 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Excellent. The interplanetary transfer stage is definitely getting work done here. We are going to burn out almost a quarter of its fuel from this circularization. Eve is expensive to burn in. There's no doubt about that. We do have about 55 seconds on this burn, so I will physics warp this up just to get through it a little bit quicker here. Cool. And we'll come out of the warp now. And let's just keep an eye on this situation here. Cool, that'll do. And from here, at this periapsis, that periapsis is almost perfect, but not quite. Right around here, we would want to do something like this, but I want to do an inclination change first. So let's go ahead and set Gilly as our target. 10 degrees. Gilly is very inclined, and if we were clever, we would have come in with this inclination, but we're not clever. So that will be fine. We will just go ahead and bring this on over. I'm going to bring it a little bit retrograde as well. Something along the lines of this-ish. Oop, that was too much. There, that'll do. Fantastic. So we'll get lined up for that burn. It's a little retrograde and a lot anti-normal, so that'll be fine. We're lined up for that. That'll be in 17 days. No real problem there. So we'll just get warped around here, and that will be fine. And then we will look to encapsulate here, which will be almost exactly at the same time as this burn. So we're just going to flip to retrograde after we're done with our inclination change and just eyeball it. That'll be the plan. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just close enough. Cool. So we just want to get this timing correct, and that's why we're doing this encapsulation orbit. And let's warp on forward another minute here. Okay, a little bit further. Cool. 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Excellent. That should do. Good enough. Let's flip over to retrograde, and we're going to be eyeballing this. So, no maneuver node. Let's bring that on over. Cool. About here. It's probably not quite correct, but it's approximately correct. Okay, so now if we were to look for a transfer, we could do something kind of like this, although it would, because this is an egg-shaped, it's going to be much easier to get it at the apoapsis or the periapsis. So if we were to bring this down, that's actually pretty close. That is actually quite close. But we can do some radial burns if we need to, just to even that out. And get something kind of like this. Now, where would that end up entering? Okay, periapsis is down below. So what we need to do is we need to get the periapsis to be directly over this, but also on, like, right here. That's what we need to do. So we need to grab our maneuver here and alter it to be out over this way. I'm going to toss in some normal and then a little bit more prograde. We're going to need more prograde than that, and probably a little bit less normal. That's looking pretty decent, actually. Okay. So something along the lines of this, but we need the timing different. So this is like snapping into positions here. That's not great. There we go. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Well, we can make some alterations to this orbit, I suppose. This is going to be going retrograde from here as well, so we're going to have to flip our directionality. So maybe this is okay. We just bring this slightly less out. Even less out. I'm going to go into this tool here. Oh, deselected it. Fantastic. I'm going to go into this tool, turn our scale way, way down. And from here, we're just going to go slightly retrograde like that. The normal looks approximately correct, But what we really want here is to be about here. We'll see what ends up happening here. We can always make some alterations with our delta V. We're going to have to inverse our directionality here, right? So this is going to head, I believe, this direction somewhat. So that should be fine. We're going to go ahead and warp forward here and make an attempt at this. Let's see how we go. Yeah, we're going to have to alter where we are here. That's orbiting quite quickly. Noted. That's going to make things complicated. No doubt about that. But we'll see what our timing is looking like. We will be arriving here in like 10 days. So I have no real way to predict where this is going to be in 10 days. That's the thing. So we're going to get this transfer going, and we're going to hope that it's right around here, but I don't necessarily think that it will be. The odds on that are a little low, but we can always raise up or lower our orbit a little bit until we get to the right point, hopefully. I don't know. I'm bad at this sort of thing. But we're going to warp forward here. 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay, we're going to do this very gently. There. That should do. Now, of course, when we hit this periapsis, we are going to need to do a retrograde burn and flip this guy all the way around. So this is encapsulation here, right? And then we're going to need to do a retrograde burn and flip our orbit like that, which isn't very expensive at this time. Then we could even toss in a little bit of radial if we were feeling it to flesh out our actual orbit here. It's a little bit off due to the timing here. We could certainly look to change our overall timing a little bit. Let's see here. Something kind of like this. Kind of. We'd make some alterations on the fly. And then we could push our periapsis back up over here if we're in the right position. Of course, we're going to need to change our inclination as well while we're at it. And we may as well. So let's just get our inclination lined up. Just trying to get our vision lined up here so that we can do a better job of lining our inclination up. Okay. I'm going to, for the moment, turn off the radial here. But I'm guessing this is because we're not on the ascending/descending node. So let's just get this approximate. Kind of like that. And then we can refine that later. That's looking pretty good, actually. Yeah, that's looking really good. Cool. So let's line up for that maneuver. That's going to be in 8 days. And we'll just warp that on forward. We'll see where the zone is when we get there. Fingers crossed that we got this correct, but I don't think we did. I really don't. We'll see. The odds on it are very low. It's not terrible, but we're about 90 degrees off. Noted. I don't think this is going to count. We can see, but I really don't think it's going to count. So we're going to probably need to change our position. So let's just bring this on down, and we'll get our orbit approximately correct anyway. So we'll go ahead and burn this now. Okay. That was not overshooting because we need to flip it. So flip this on around. There we go. So apparently the orbit is now correct. Excellent. So then we can maintain stability, but we have not held a stationary orbit directly above this zone. My question is, do we need to hold this orbit? I don't think so. So what we need to do is we need to time this so that our... Like, what we need to do is drop this down so that our apoapsis, or rather, so that when we get to our periapsis, we burn... No, we'd have to burn back at the apoapsis. So we need the full orbit to finish when this gets here. Okay. How many revolutions per orbit is this doing right now? 1. Okay, that makes sense. So what we need is to get this orbit reduced. So this orbit is currently approximately a 4-hour orbit. So we need to reduce it down to be a 3-hour orbit, or increase it actually to be a 5-hour orbit, is what we would really want to do. Do we have the space here to do that? The answer is yes, we do. Okay, so we'd want to bring this to be, instead of 4 hours 29, we'd want it to be 5 hours 29. Like that. And then once we're at this periapsis, we reduce it back down to being a circular-ish 41-kilometer orbit. Okay, so we're in position here. This is a very minute burn. So these are all going to be extremely minor. Let's go ahead and thrust limit if we can get rid of our warp here. Let's thrust limit this down to 0.5%. There we go. And let's warp on forward. Okay. So we're just adding 1 hour to our orbit here, is what we're doing. That should give us enough time for this to catch up to us when we reach this periapsis. That's the idea. I'm making this up as I go, though. I'm bad at this. We'll see if this works. Okay. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, mark. And off we go. So yeah, we're no longer on this orbit. We will resume this orbit once we come back around, is the idea. Okay, so we'll stop there. And now I'm going to warp slightly ahead. And once we reach this periapsis again, we're going to add a maneuver, pulling our orbit back to being this, which should be close enough. Excellent. Now we warp around, and if I've calculated this correctly, we should be directly over it, and we are. Beautiful. Let's line up for the maneuver. We are stationary orbit directly above zone 56C3. Okay. I think I figured it out. Fantastic. So we're going to warp forward here until we are ready for this maneuver. 10 more seconds. And mark. Excellent. Let's bring this on down. Just keeping an eye on it here. Technically, this is close enough. Okay, we'll call that good. Now we need to maintain stability. Okay, it looks like the contract is complete. Yes, contract complete. Beautiful. I completely made up how to get there. How to get in the correct position for that. But, I mean, it makes sense, and it worked. So that's absolutely great. I've never tried that technique before. I did not do any research on how to get in that position. I just made that up. So, I like it. And we're in position now. I suppose we can go ahead and deploy our scanner here. Cool. It's kind of clipping into our antenna a little bit. I suppose we could fix that by inclining this a little bit, like so, around 15 degrees. Yeah, that fixes it. Excellent. So we can perform our orbital survey, but we have to be in a stable polar orbit between 25 and 65 kilometers, which helpfully the contract didn't have us do. But that's fine. I'm not actually that concerned about it. We could get into a stable polar orbit. It's not like that would be particularly challenging to do. And in reality, that might not be the worst idea. Maybe. A polar orbit is usually better for a comsat like this, in my opinion. So we could definitely go for a polar orbit, going for something kind of like this, and I'm choosing over here. I actually want it to be more like here, in line with the sun. Okay, so we would bring this over to be inclination-wise, something kind of like this, and then we'd need some retrograde tossed in, right? So some retrograde, or actually, this is way too much normal because retrograde also counts. Yeah, it's going to be a little awkward. We're just going to have to fiddle with it until we find it. Come on. More retrograde. Okay, this is way too much. This is way too much. I've clearly messed something up. Okay, we'll bring this in, and then we'll retrograde it. Okay, yeah, that's the problem then. Got it. So we bring this around to be more like so. We've overshot on the inclination here. So we bring it around, and yeah, as I thought, it was way too much. So we bring this around like so, and then we toss in some normal to circularize it. That's very sensitive there. We'll call this probably good enough. And let's just get this burn done real quick. Cool. We'll warp on forward for that. That's going to be in about 2 hours. No problem. Our contract is complete, so deviating from the orbit is completely fine at this point. And we'll just get into a polar orbit here. It's only 17 meters per second, right? Like, it's not very much. So this is going to be a 4-minute burn. Let's bump up our thrust limiter. That's apparently not moving because we have no data. Are we simply occluded by the... I think we're simply occluded by Gilly right now. Kerbal is out over this way. Yep, we're occluded by Gilly. Okay. That's fine for now, I guess. We can always burn this, and then once we get our data back... It's just a line of sight issue. Once we get our data back, we can up our thrust limiter, but let's go ahead and get started on this burn. It's going to be a hefty one at 0.5%. But I mean, it's not that bad. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. We're already almost 25% done with the burn. So I guess while this is happening, I think it's pretty unlikely that we're going to get our comms back between now and then. We could definitely consider putting another one of these in orbit around Eve to lessen the chance of this happening in the future. But for now, I think it's okay. It's also time to put a cut in here, so after this burn, I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I think I'm just going to move directly onto the members here. We'll have this burn done by the time next episode starts, and we'll have this guy completely in position. And a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, Mlohan80, Kentogan, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Kadra, Unisol, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time. The orbit just finished up. The burn for the orbit just finished as I concluded that. So we are in a polar orbit, and I will just show you that real quick here. Boom. Polar orbit. Fantastic. We can't get rid of this because we still don't have communications, but that's okay. See you all next time.